Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, let me begin by saying that I'm glad to be here today, not as an actor of the defense industry, but as the president of World OCR, the Swiss International Federation for Obstacle Course Running, a sport. In a time when most state actors focus on acquiring the latest defense technologies, one essential component seems to lag behind in the upward trend, the human factor. This conference showcases new technologies across various defense domains, but amidst all this, I considered it brilliant that it also integrates a panel dedicated to human performance. What I aim to bring to this conversation is a perspective from outside the defense sector, but deeply relevant to it. How early exposure to a certain type of structural physical challenges can rewire zones of interest for future adults and reopen career pathways towards which youngsters can tend to, like the military service. Nowadays, we're seeing a steady decline in the aspiration of young people to pursue roles that require strength and discipline. My role today is to highlight that we can shift that, starting from the foundation. Not a long time ago, kids didn't have to be put into sport. Their days naturally included physical activity, from climbing fences, playing outside, or even just helping out around the house. Their bodies were constantly engaged. Today, ask a 16-year-old of what career they dream of. You will most likely hear influencer. Screen time, algorithm-driven attention cycles, and urban lifestyles have nearly erased the incidental exercise kids used to get every day. These changes not only affect their health, but also their ambitions related to what careers they will be pursuing in their future. While many sectors can adapt through automation and downsizing, defense and especially special operation forces cannot. World OCR, as an organization, governs the developing sport of obstacle course running. Yet, if you really think about it, what we promote is only natural movement, running, climbing, crawling, activities that, ironically, were once part of every child's everyday life. Now let's delve a bit into some statistics that highlight the points that I just made. A Pentagon study conducted in 2022 revealed that 77% of Americans aged 17 to 24 are ineligible for military service due to several reasons, the main one being overweight. According to the 2024 Eurobarometer, which is a cross-country public opinion survey conducted in the EU, 45% of Europeans never engage in exercise or sport, and 31.6% of young Europeans are classified as overweight. It's imperative to recognize that while some industries can adapt to a workforce with variable physical capabilities, the defense sector cannot do that. Therefore, high-impact initiatives that educate civilian population to reprioritize physical activity from an early age is crucial in reversing this trend. Obstacle sports didn't just appear from thin air. Their foundation is based in military physical training systems. We, the world governing body for obstacle course running, have restructured it into something more appealing for the younger generations. We kept the challenge, but we added the intensity and adapted it to today's urban lifestyle. This combination has worked. Different forms of OCR are now practiced in over 100 countries with hundreds of thousands of participants annually. What's the secret? Young people love it. While traditional sports struggle to hold up attention, OCR is keeping up. Why? It's fast, it's dynamic, and it's social media friendly, which unfortunately today is really important. That makes OCR not just a sport, it makes it a tool, a good tool, to bring movement back into culture, especially for younger generations. The Building Better Humans initiative isn't a campaign. It's the main project of our organization. From its founding documents, World OCR was not designed to be just another international sports federation. Its goal is to act as a bridge between the civilian society and the military domain using a shared medium, sports, more specifically obstacle sports. Our events include both civilian and military competitions for indoor and also outdoor. We're active within the Erasmus Plus sports program, where we run educational staff exchanges. We collaborate with European ministries of defense that want to improve the training capabilities of their existing personnel, but also, really important, attract new ones. Our obstacles are already used in certain national military championships. I just got back yesterday from one. We had 950 cadets. They loved it. It's an event that in 4 years got up from 60 people to 950. So it has a lot of traction. As I close, I want to leave you with this thought. If we agree that human performance remains essential, then it's time to treat its decline with the same urgency we apply to other forms of strategic readiness. Whether you're working in recruitment, youth development, training and infrastructure, or civilian-military collaboration, I believe we have overlapping goals. If your institution is looking to increase civilian engagement with national service, modernize the way physical readiness is approached, reignite physical ambition amongst new generations, we are open to collaborate. Obstacle course running, like I mentioned before, isn't just a sport. It's a practical, scalable, and culturally relevant tool that can help straighten the bridge between civilian society and readiness-focused professions. I invite you to reach out. Let's connect and explore how we can build better humans together. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir. I now give the floor to Colonel Christina Sheremet to deliver his remarks. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is an honor to be with you today to discuss an essential topic, human performance and resilience, a medical perspective on future challenges in training and sustaining special force. In an increasingly complex operational environment, where advanced technology is redefining military strategies, the human factor remains essential. The ability to physically and mentally withstand challenges is a key element for mission success. Special forces are exposed to extreme conditions, variable temperatures, intense physical exertion, sleep deprivation, and psychological stress. This factor can affect performance and long-term health. Therefore, operational medicine must evolve, offering innovative solutions for the prevention and treatment of specific conditions. To support the resilience of the military, we must invest in adapted nutrition and hydration, advanced medical technologies, personalized training, programs that increase the ability to adapt to stress. With the integration into NATO structure, Romania and the partners have adopted advanced medical standards aligned with the international requirements. Cooperation between states is essential for the exchange of best practices and the development of joint training programs. To ensure the success of future operation, we must adopt a multidisciplinary approach combining medicine, technology, and training strategies. Investment in medical research and development will contribute to increase resilience and protecting the health of military. Thank you, and look forward to the discussion in the panel.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel 3 of today would benefit from the following. From Ministry of Defense, Colonel Adrian Drena. From Central Military Emergency University Hospital, Karol Davila, Colonel Mihai Toma. Emergency Military Hospital, Constantin Papilian from Cluj, Colonel Doina Baltaro. OMFEST, Târgu Mureș, Professor Cristian Voieriu. Hartman, Romania, Dominic Șteputat. And from Vigilant United States, Sean Seiler. Thank you very much for being here. And I'll go straight to the questions, if you don't mind. My first question goes to Colonel Drena. Sir, how is the emergency medical care organized within Ministry of Defense? If you can briefly tell the audience.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting us. Hope to have a successful interaction. So I'll start with the need. So in case we have a situation where somebody has lost his health, good health status, at the unitary level, at battalion level, we have an aid station, and at peacetime, I'm talking about, there we have usually a doctor and some nurses or sanitaries, as we call them, and they will intervene and perform first aid measures. For those, they are qualified in the national health system of education, and so they are all certified to perform medicine on the territory of Romania. And from there, we have our own evacuation means. We transport them to the hospitals. We have 11 military hospitals in Romania, and each of them has 5 to 6 counties that are allocated to them. So usually, if it's not a life-threatening situation, we will transport them to the hospital. If it's a life-threatening situation, we have the unique national emergency system, so we need to rely on them also. In exercises, we always preposition some medical resources. So in the firing ranges or other training areas, we plan to have sufficient means, doctors and nurses, depending on the training event. If it's live fire exercise, for example, we mandatory have at least one doctor, and also with support from our colleagues from the hospital network, we have the highest level of ambulance assigned for that specific event. During crisis, That's a lot of discussion. If we have time, maybe we will get into it. But usually we have triage, stabilization, and preparation for evacuation at battalion level. We have surgical capabilities at the brigade level, and also at division level we have a lot more specialties, for example, neurosurgery. And the last level, which will be level 4, it's the Central Emergency Military Hospital in Bucharest, which provides also recovery treatment. So we also have a training system for that. We have a manual which trains all the soldiers in performing first aid. So we make sure that everybody knows the content of the personal, the IFAC, the individual first aid kit, and knows how to apply those measures. We have some courses. We have a course, it's called Combat Lifesaver, also for the soldiers, so for non-medical providers. It's a very good program. We are very proud of it. And also, I will let my colleague from the hospital to explain what happens for training the students and doctors in emergency system. I think
We'll tackle that. Thank you, sir. Anyone else would like to add something or some thoughts? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to emphasize the fact that there is a very good cooperation between the military and civilian part in emergency services and emergency medicine. There was always a great sustainment coming from the military part towards the civilian one. And I take the chance here to thank you for that. We've had a lot of common exercises together in the last decade, let's say, I may say 10 years. And all of them were very useful and successful. Useful, I mean, for both parts, I think. And now I remember the last exercise, huge one in Chinku, where militaries and civilians and the structures coming from the Ministry of Interior, they worked together very well. And actually, we pointed out the importance of communication and interoperability between the military and the civilian structures. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We just touched upon cooperation during medical emergencies. Colonel Toma, what matters? What do you think matters in this cooperation?
Time, because it's essential to have a good improvement communication between pre-hospital and hospital personnel, because our hospital is included in STEMI program, in stroke program. It's essential to that dispatcher from 112 or other ambulances to announce us to prepare the CT scan, to call the interdisciplinary consult. It's time consuming. If we know that we came on, I don't know, on a stroke, a patient stroke, from the start we have the neuro doctor, neurologist, we have CT scan prepare, or trauma patient, we call surgeon, neurosurgeon, or other specialty, and know how to prepare. I have last year 2 cases, a young patient, 90 years old, bringing from the unit with explosion of throttle, with both arms smashed, but none of the unit call us. I call that from our gate, it's coming an ambulance from unit with a patient very bad. We don't know. Also, we have a patient that cut the throat with a cutter and was brought to another hospital, stabilized, intubated by the larynx, and after they bring to us, but they don't announce us. We receive directly the patient and enter in the surgeon in otolaryngosurgery. this need and improve the program to establish protocol of collaboration. We have a type of patient, we start with protocol 1. We have another patient, we start with protocol 2. Because the same protocol that we need to have in pre-hospital, we need to have in hospital. And based on each experience, each hospital experience, we need to improve this protocol.
Thank you so much. You want to contribute? Please do. Please feel free.
We are members of the Alliance, and the military medical system must respect the principles of the Alliance. And of course, all of us have heard about the capstone concept. And medical military healthcare service must be agile, adaptive, and resilient. And it is essential. We all see how the modern war looks. It is essential to have a civil-military cooperation because the healthcare system and the personnel is very precious, and we also must train together because during peace we are public, opened hospitals, the military hospitals, and we respect the protocols from the civilian system. But war medicine is different, somewhat similar to disaster medicine, but needs special training, special instruments, and we lack framework, the regulations on this topic. And there are also some problems on particular blood transfusion aspects. We still don't have the regulations to align NATO with the civilian aspects. So we need to have some regulations that recognize specific competencies, professional competencies. Pre-hospital is very important in modern war, and transfusion goes pre-hospital. Let's see the Ukraine lessons, war lessons. And after these competencies are recognized, we must train together with our colleagues, our civilian colleagues, with the civilian students, and after that with the specialists.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sean, you wanted to? Yeah, please do.
Sure. Am I on? Okay. One of the things that I've had the privilege of running both small and large systems at the local and at the national level, both in our military and civilian system in the United States. One of the most common stumbling blocks and things to help get across and get you towards success is a common language. And this somewhat varies from country to country and what system you've adopted. And this is one of the challenges we have within NATO as well, but establishing a common language so that when I say something, you understand what I'm saying and vice versa, because that gets to the two biggest problems that we have seen in national and international events that I've responded to or helped lead. The first is communication. Communication always is challenging no matter what, but then that leads to the second one, and that is situational awareness. And if you at a system level, trying to cooperate, can't communicate and you can't figure out what's going on, where it's going on, and with who it's going on, it's very hard to make a systemic kind of response actually be cohesive. And then lastly, going to kind of back to the soft truths. Soft truth number 4, soft cannot be created after an emergency happens. And this is very true when it comes to emergency responses and cooperation. You cannot try to figure out who your friends are and who your partners are and how they operate in the middle of a crisis, which then goes right back to your point, Colonel, of training, and that we have to train together. We have to train often. It is perishable, but it is an opportunity that all of us as organizations have.
Thank you very much, Sean. Anybody? Please.
Thank you so much. I would also like, giving a point of impression of my personal situation as we facing the start of the war 3 years ago, right? There was like, I'm from the supplier side, can speak only from the supplier side. There was an emergency, or there was an urgent need of like almost everything, right? So speaking from Hartmann, we are the supplier, for example, for trauma bandages or emergency bandages. And at this point, like, let's say this war started, there was such a huge need of these kind of products, and the market was almost like without any possibility to deliver. We were in the good situation, we were like more or less prepared for this, and we were in the situation to deliver such goods. But looking into the, let's say, supply chain perspective, most of these goods or products which are used in the first emergency care coming out from a market which is not based in Europe. So, and I would like to say this is one additional challenge where we have to keep the awareness higher in this direction, that these kind of products coming out of a market which is currently in a situation which is not stable as well, which can be in a conflict in the next years too, which comes through another challenge in what happens then, where we get the products from, where we get the goods from, the raw materials, for example. This is another point of view I would like to give in another perspective on this.
Thank you. Thank you. We all know that infrastructure is critical for emergencies. So I would like to ask Colonel Baltaro, what kind of infrastructure is a must, and what kind of infrastructure is desirable in medical emergencies?
Classical war made us learn about mobile medical treatment facilities. But in modern war, where a missile can hit in the center of the country, there are other rules. No convention is taken into account. We must use the healthcare system infrastructure of the civilian system also. We must be very mobile to move quickly from one hospital to another. And I think taking into account the practice of other countries, Israeli are pioneers, but Ukraine also is using now underground medical facilities to protect the patients and the personnel, because in this modern era, unfortunately, medical facilities are a target. For medical evacuation, we must prepare with vehicles with dual use. For example, buses that have stretchers in their walls, and in case of need, in the disaster situation, other crises also, you remove the chairs and use the stretchers, and so the bus becomes a ground medevac useful system. And as I've already said, the infrastructure regarding blood transfusion is very important. Not just the concept of walking blood bank, but also we must produce our own dried plasma. It is essential to control the shock due to the bleeding, massive bleeding. And if we don't have these essential means, we cannot save so many lives.
Okay.
I think that also the railway is very important. Of course, in Romania, there are not such long distances like in Ukraine for medical evacuation. But it's a strategic system, and it's important also for having access to what materials and medication we need, and also to evacuate the casualties.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to stress on the importance of civil-military interoperability, because a standardized interoperable logistics system would be, I think, of a big help in, of course, case of a conflict. And I'm saying this because Romania now is one of the 3 hubs across Europe. I mean, all kind of medical supplies, starting from certain types of medication going up to disposables. And this is not a secret because it's a project that was financed by the European Union and it was put in practice last year by HERA. And the thing is that it would be very important that the military structures be aware about all these let's say, supplies that are available, you know, in place in these 3 different countries, but I mentioned Romania. That's one thing. And then also in terms of logistics, it's not only the part of medical supplies, because you mentioned the blood and so on, but there is also the fixed infrastructure. That, I mean, hospitals and all the medical facilities that are available all over the region, let's say, because we're talking about a certain region right now, which again should be a subject of common protocols. And now I'm going back to the idea of our colleague here who said that like cooperation and speaking the same language, I think, is one of the most important things when we talk about this kind of cooperation and this kind of situations that, let's say, we don't want to face, but unfortunately are right in front of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Artificial intelligence, of course, is important,
I
but
see. Okay.
we must have very well trained people from the healthcare side and also from the fighters, from the warriors. And civilian population must also know some rules, what to do and what not to do in a conflict. So it's very important to train together. We know that the European Union has an emergency framework protocol, and similar principles are in those documents with the NATO documents, emphasizing that in crisis also, not only in war, in all kind of crisis, it's essential to have civil-military cooperation.
Thank you.
So
sure, go
drones
ahead.
for medical triage and other, and to transport blood, drugs, or whatever, are already being used in war zones. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead.
Just a few thoughts, because we are talking about cooperation. We have in mind to develop a program firstly for medical doctors, and then to open it for the civilian doctors also, regarding procedures for special situations like catastrophes and war. For example, damage control surgery, because we are not used to that, and we really need to have these protocols, of course, since peacetime. We have a project on that, and it is defining the concept of operational medicine, and for that we need to change a law in Romania. It's not that difficult, but it's an ongoing process, and when we will get there, we will have the basis to develop all these programs that we really need to have. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to touch upon decision making. I'd like, Sean, I know you have the experience with JMAP. If you can tell us what could be an appropriate decision-making chain in medical emergencies, how you see? What's your views in this?
Absolutely. Let me kind of start with, I'm going to approach this from the individual perspective, but also then the system perspective. And I think that the principles apply either civilian or military. They're all basic fundamentals. But you know, the first part of your decision making and taking care of patients and responding to any event is both safety, and then if you put your military lens on, win the fight. You have to win the fight, or you can't do anything else. But you also can't walk into an unsafe situation. And so that fundamental never changes regardless of who is actually doing that. Now, when you go back to kind of the soft side and the military perspective, you know, you've got kind of two decision points and then a bunch of fundamentals that you've got to hit. The first is, are you returning that person to duty? When you see them or some event happens, I sprain my ankle, I cut myself, are you going back to duty, or am I going to keep this person for a little bit? So that's your first yes-no question. And then the second is, if you keep them, do you need to keep them, or do you need to move them somewhere else? And the overall tenet of military medicine is to return as many people back to their units to go do what they do. That's why the Army Medical Department's motto is to preserve the fighting strength. And that is absolutely our goal as military providers. But when you look at it from a civilian perspective, that's kind of our national goal anyways. We want to get people back to working their jobs and taking care of their kids and doing what they do. Now, at the individual level, kind of those things that you have to tick off somewhat in order, you know, the first thing is tactical combat casualty care. Should be very simple for all of us. We all basically practice it. It is the NATO standard, and that's what you do, quickly followed by the second item, and that is, you know, medical care that you can do organic to your own unit. And most of the time, go back to those first two questions, can I return them to duty, or am I going to hang on to them? You'll probably be able to take care of it at that level. The next thing that you absolutely have to do or maintain is gain situational awareness. So this goes back to communication, but understanding what's going on around you and what resources do you have. If you decide to keep somebody and hang on to them, but your maneuver unit, your commander, needs to move, and maneuver is more important, the last thing in the world you can have is 12 different patients sitting around, and now I can't pick up and move. That is super important. Fourth is, in that vein, prepare for movement. Always, always, always be ready to move. And the Ukraine conflict has absolutely shown us that there is no area of refuge, there is no safe area, and you are basically a drone flight away from having a bad day. So, number 4, prepare to move. And then 5, reset. You've got to immediately be proactively thinking about, how do I order supplies and more blood and put my transportation platforms back where they need to go. Now, from a system perspective, it's very similar, just a little bit different order on that, but basically situational awareness and what are the expectations at a system level. I go back to that example of ground force commander is trying to maneuver at this point, and so the last thing in the world you want to do is open up your hospital and lay all your stuff out over a couple of acres, and then you can't move in the next 12 hours. And so understanding your place in the world, in the operation, but that's situational awareness. The second is clear the zone, whatever that zone is, whether it's an impact zone, a disaster site, a chemical spill, or you know, a military battlefield. But your next job is to get as many people out of the way so that everybody that needs to do their job afterwards isn't, you know, stumbling over your assets. Third is manage your network and distribute your load. This is something in the U.S. military we call medical regulating. This is where I don't send 344 people at once to one battalion aid station with one doc, a couple nurses, and some medics. And so this is where you end up, you know, trying to put them across the entire region. And it may mean that you've got people traveling a really long ways and they're bypassing medical treatment facilities. And they look over and they're like, hey, doc, we just ran by a Red Cross. Why didn't we stop there? It's like, you need to go further. And so that element in the U.S. military is managed at the medical brigade level, but that regulating function is super important at a system level. And then lastly, reset. Reset your system. Get your vehicles tanked back up, get more gas in them, rest your people, and continue to clear your own hospitals out. So those are kind of, the overall goals for decision making and a couple of the fundamentals that at the individual level and at the system level, I think kind of need to be addressed.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will move to the next question. So I'm trying to piggyback on what you said, and I would ask Colonel Drina what is his views, or what medical facilities he sees as essential, you see as essential when you have to do this progress. You have a casualty in the physics, you have to move him or her all the way through a better medical environment or healthcare environment.
Thank you for the question. Actually, it's strictly related to what our colleague said. So I think mobility is the word when we are taking into account to get the casualties from the fighting soldiers. Because you think when you see the soldier fighting, his comrade is more like his brother maybe, because they stood there for a couple of days enduring all sorts of bad things, and we need the soldier to focus on what's in front of him, not behind him. So our job as doctors is to get the victim as safely and as fast as possible from the battlefield. For that, we need to have a very mobile surgical capability near the front line, and that is what we called the Role to Basic Medical Treatment Facility, which is able to move very fast, because as we saw in this recent war, things are moving very fast. And also we have to have a very robust evacuation system, which consists of evacuation means, like what Dr. Boltaro said, a capacity to load over 40 patients on stretchers at once, and also, and I'm looking into it very attentive. And also, we need to have a very good management system for the evacuation. Lacks empathy, and out of the front line, and of course, as many of those back to duty, because our first mission is to make sure that we have a very good fighting force.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment? So otherwise, I will try to make a slight diversion. No, not a big one, just a, so you want to say something, Sean? Go ahead.
I may make a little comment on infrastructure in general, and I may speak blasphemy, but the healthcare system in the civilian world and in the military world tends to value and place the capability in a building or in a tent. And it ends up being a physical location rather than the people in that. So I was an emergency medicine attending. I worked in a level 1 trauma center in the United States, and it was this big, huge building. And that building never, ever saved a single human life. The people inside it are what saved that human life. But we tend to think of the only place you can go is to that building. And it's not true. Our colleagues in Ukraine show this every day, operating out of bus stations and subways and underneath overpasses. But it's about the human beings that provide that capability. And this is something that when I had the privilege to serve at Joint Special Operations Command in the U.S. military on a small 4-person surgical team, we took that same concept of level 1 trauma surgery, damage control resuscitation out of backpacks here on a stage like this. And there's no building around. There's no Red Cross around. But it was that mindset that you have to have as an individual unit, as an individual provider, because it's blasphemy to do surgery outside of an operating room. You can't do that. It's impossible. Yet we've been doing it for 45 years. And so if we can take that approach and try to make sure that organizationally You know, we talk about role 1, role 2. Those aren't places. Those are capabilities that have humans behind it, and it really doesn't matter what they're in. And that's something that I think sometimes we're challenged as an organization, but it also gives us the opportunity as an organization and as all of you to help influence that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, so I was talking about that diversion. I will target Professor Boerio. I want to touch upon the young generations. My question is, how does the teaching and training of the medical students in battlefield medicine or field surgery, whatever you like it to call, looks like these days?
Yeah. Well, first of all, our students, military medical students, I mean, they have two, let's say, different educational branches. One is common with civilian medical students, and basically they participate to the same lectures, to the same courses, they have the same disciplines. And the second branch is the specific military training that probably you may tell us more about the specific of it, so I'm not going to go deep into this topic. But from our point of view as civilians, what we have right now, there are several stages. First is the preclinical part, and there they have the physiology, the physiopathology of trauma, because let's talk a bit about trauma, as trauma maybe is the most common pathology in terms of military problems or diseases. They have, after their third year, from the fourth year, they start doing their rotations in different clinics, and surgery or intensive care or emergency medicine rotations are very helpful. Why? Because they see there specifically some pathologies, surgical pathologies that they may face in a real situation, like in a conflict. But what we do, especially in emergency medicine discipline, we do a lot of simulations, because simulation is another very good tool. And there we use mannequins, we use all kind of simulation tools, including virtual reality tools that we have, that we try to put our students very close to a real situation in an immersive virtual reality environment, and to make them face pathologies, again, that are very close to what you see, in the first line, let's say. Now, speaking about the main focus right now today is airway management. That's what we teach them. We teach them how to stop a hemorrhage in different situations. We teach them principles of transfusion and different types of blood products that they can use even on the battlefield. And of course, how to treat simply, a wound, or how to let's say, treat a pneumothorax or a hemothorax in the field at the site. But there are many other ways to improve, let's say, this training. And here I'm going a little bit into the typology of the modern war. And I mean, we are not seeing everything that we've seen in the movies from the Second World War, but there are other things. And you mentioned actually what happened in Ukraine. Now we're seeing people, underground, in the underground and so on. So urban fight. And what would you do as a medic or a doctor in such a case? Or biochemical problems if they occur. And it's very likely that we will have to face such kind of problems if something wrong will happen, right? So this is, I think, a field where the training should address, and maybe a little bit put some more importance, let's say, on that. And then let's talk a little bit about technological proficiency, because I mean, we see a lot of, the technology is evolving with a speed that we cannot follow. I mean, it's amazing what is going on. And I think it is very important to make our students understand the importance of technology. And now we're talking about AI and like using of drones for everything, you know. I mean, when I was a soldier, there was no concept of drones. That was 30 years ago or 35 years ago, of course. Now it's there. Let's talk about telemedicine. Telemedicine is growing a lot. And I can tell you, because again, this is not a secret, I was honored to be part of a NATO project, international project, of like building a independent telemedicine system, you know, to be used in the battlefield, you know, self-sufficient, and be connected to some medical hubs that were placed in, initially, the project said 4 countries, but finally there were only 3. And we tested it. Do you know where? In Ukraine. But not now. It was during the peacetime. But now, as I know, we use it. But first of all, our people have to be trained in how to use such kind of tools. And then the last thing that I want to address, again, is communication between civilians and militaries. This is, I think, I mean, in such a case, in a risk case, in a problem, in a conflict, there is no place for ego. There is no place for that. So communication between civilians and militaries, and now I'm talking about the medical stuff, it is extremely important and has to be understood by both parts. How important it is, just leave down all the egos and so on, and go on and talk, you know.
Thank you very much.
Based on those protocols that you mentioned earlier, which are very important. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to, Colonel? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We must remember that, unfortunately, in modern war, there are a lot of civilian victims with the same wounds like the soldiers. And I think the most important thing is to change the regulations, to improve the regulations, and to train our civil and military medical personnel. Because fortunately, we are in peacetime now, but we can use big models for wounds similar to those that we encountered during war, and train on these models. And of course, there are these important trauma centers. I think the best in Romania is in Târgu Mureș, where severe cases come, and we should send our surgeons, intensive care specialists also, to work in these centers for a while, not just for a European course, because what you don't do frequently, you don't do well. And only one thing I want to say, I think Poland has a very interesting vision. They have decided to have a number of beds in each region, voivodate, in civilian hospitals, that will be used during a conflict for medical evacuation for war victims. So they now have this number of beds for war victims, and the others, they have an estimation, and the others for chronic patients. We all know that during war, in the beginning, there's an increase of a number of deaths of wounded, but after that, the patients with chronic diseases increase as diseased patients, because they don't have access to medical healthcare system.
Thank you very much. Colonel, go ahead.
I want to make some remarks regarding that Professor Boeriu said. When we look at military medicine, you need to face a thing. Not all military medicine will be emergency doctors or surgeon, okay? I am a coordinator of program of emergency medicine in Bucharest in the military hospital. From 100 student, one choose emergency medicine. Okay? Military medicine is not only trauma. From 100 students, they choose surgery, choose dermatology, choose ophthalmology. It's a real thing. From the last 5 years, I have now the 4th year of finish residency in my hospital. 1 military finish from 20 civilian and 3 civilian. Okay?
I see.
In real world, in wartime, okay, all of us, even we have military or civilian doctors, we have function, specific function in each role 1, role 2, role 3. None of us will escape from these charges. When you talk about the trauma and emergency medicine, okay, not all are faced to be emergency doctors. Not all are prepared to be emergency doctors or surgeon. We'll see last year, they remain in a residency, choose places for surgery. 20 years ago, it's impossible to have this problem. I have a real problem now with students at sixth stage, when they finish now. I ask, what do you want to choose? 30% now in this year, I don't know. Okay? They have only 2 months until residency. They don't know what to choose. It's the first one when I have this much problem with this student. I don't know if Turkmenish is the same, but in Bucharest it's a real problem. You have 6 years of students, and in the final, I don't know what to do with my life.
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have one idea? I see Sean tries to contribute. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Super quick comment. So as I was supervising residents in the trauma center, one of the things that I've noticed, at least definitely in the U.S., training medical students and then you may want to use the microphone, sir.
But never I enter in surgery, like in trauma center in America.
Yep, check. And I am not a surgeon either.
Different.
So what I was going to say is that there's definitely a very strong focus on technology, and I see all the excitement with AI, and we're going to have machines figure out how to do everything in medicine that there is. One of the things that I worry about, and I see that in those student trainees, is over-reliance on that technology and a almost abandonment of fundamentals. And so, I'll use my kids as an example. When they're trying to do long division and they're like, we have an iPhone and I have a calculator. And I'm like, you still need to learn how to do it. The calculator just helps you do it faster. I'm in the trauma room several years ago, and we had a patient, and they were bleeding, not life-threatening, but it was making a mess. And I asked the resident to do something about it. He came up with 2 different medicines to try to put on it, and 1 different, very brand name specific tool to apply. And they couldn't find it. The nurses were like, what are you asking for? I can't get it. And I'm like, put your finger on it. And he just looked at me. And seriously, put your finger on it. You're good now. Go figure that out now. And that approach to physiology, that approach to fundamentals is somewhat falls to the wayside, especially as we race forward into very specific, kind of technology applications. But bringing it back to special operations, that's what makes SOF different than everybody else. When I was at JSOC, I remember asking, hey, when do I get to go to the cool guy shooting course? And they're like, there is none. What do you mean? There's no cool shooting, like makes you do like the movies? No, it's all fundamentals done very, very well. Trigger squeeze, breathing, aiming. But those fundamentals done well are what make the greatest people in the world. In a medical side, that's key for us, and as we're educating folks, we got to be able to do the fundamentals, and then technology gets put on top of it.
Thank you very much, Sean. I want to touch upon logistics. Logistics is kind of a nightmare everywhere, anywhere. So I would like to go back to Colonel Toma and ask him what he sees, what his views on what are the challenges that currently the logistics in medical emergencies face.
I bring an example of what happened in COVID time. 5 years ago, in 2020, we started a pandemic. The first line of our defense was 10 costumes that I bought for Ebola. And these 10 costumes and 10 masks that are used 2 months again and again, rewash with chlor until we managed to fulfill supply and establish a pathway of supplying with mask, face shields and costume of protection. It's a problem, a real problem now, having this pandemic experience, to establish new protocol of having stocks of, I don't know, for 100, 1,000, depending on how much we want to extend in each hospital these resources. Because this gentleman said the supply can be cut. And in this moment, we don't know what to do. And came with, in the booths, we put it sacks, and inventing some protection to enter to other, to face another challenge like COVID time.
I see. Okay.
And the real problem is to come back the human resources among the logistics. If we have money, we bought 10 hospitals now. We don't have doctors to put there.
Yep.
It's a real problem.
Anyone else would like to share?
Yeah, I would like
Go
to
ahead.
add something
Go ahead,
to this. So, as you mentioned, for example, the COVID pandemic, and also, as I mentioned, the start of the war. So, I just started my job during the COVID pandemic, and that was like a huge demand on like masks, personal protection equipment, sanitizing stuff, and like this. What we have learned from the supplier side, actually, we weren't aware of the situation as well. So for us, it was challenging at the same time, like for you as well, to cover all the needs and to get raw materials. And even like with this situation with the evergreen and the supply chain stopped immediately, for us, it was like impossible to fulfill the requirements of these needs. So what we have learned, for example, and what we always like to offer is to have an open, let's say, dialogue to share these kind of thoughts, and also we offer a kind of disaster storage. Like, let's say, okay, we get sure you will be covered with this emergency needs you need or urgent needs you need. It's like so for you there's no investment in storage and material. It's just, let's say, a partnership in this case to get sure, okay, you have covered your needs, we will cover, or we know, okay, we can expect this kind of need in the future for our calculation, because speaking from the industry, no one will invest in a huge amount of materials without the possibility to cover the cost for it, you know. It's like, for sure, everything at the end results in money. And for this, it's always interesting, or it's like, it's a good opportunity to get in touch with departments or also like clients with this kind of huge amount of needs, or even like with this kind of requirements, to get sure, okay, you have a solid partner on your side to get sure you will be fulfilled with everything what is essentially needed, even if it's not that, even if it's like that small or even not, you know. So this this would be one, let's say, topic we would like to address. Always like, please try to get as much as possible in touch with the industry to get sure your needs are covered and we can be your solid partner, as you don't have to rely on one source only, you know.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else would like? I would like to, we've covered a lot of stuff, but I'm just trying to see whether there are some other solutions you may want to touch upon, and this question goes to Sean and Dominic. Any other issues that you would like to share with us other than you already covered in?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. So one of the kind of unique things that or approaches that we took for solving kind of a really hard problem, and at a fundamental level, we were looking at how do we get more surgical capability in the places it needs to get to, in the time frame it needs to get to, because proximity is important, but really that's driving time, and that's time to do surgery and stop bleeding within a non-compressible hemorrhage area, which is you need about somewhere between 19 and 23 minutes if you're bleeding inside your chest or your belly or your head. If I can't stop that bleeding within that, 50% of people die. So that's not very long, and our normal systems don't work like that. So within Joint Special Operations Command, we had an approach of let's put a trauma surgeon, an anesthesia provider, an emergency medicine physician, and a PA, tactical PA, put them on a 4-person team with all the stuff they need to open your belly and to pack it. You're not doing anything else. But that approach, that kind of very different way of getting at solving a problem, worked very, very well at JSOC. We did not have any alternatives outside of that very small unit. And even to this day, the U.S. Army doesn't do that with the rest of its units. And so at Vigilant, one of the things I did was I found every one of my friends that was in that unit, and I hired them. And I brought them all in one place, and we as industry basically recreated that capability using the model of a very asymmetric way to solve a problem. And so that is one of the things that as all of us, we look at things, there's the normal way to do it, and then there's another way. Is there a way that you can do that, do it easier, cheaper, better, more scalable? And so we've applied that across logistics, across the 150 or so physicians and nurses that actually work with us on our teams to be able to send that out to other militaries and to industry to try to take that innovative thought that's out there, and then also the skills, because every single one of us in this room and every single one of us that have served in uniform in some way, shape, or form, you have precious knowledge that I think in industry we tend to kind of minimize that, and we don't realize just how powerful that is. And so as a business model, that's what we have actually done, is try to highlight that experience and how do we do things differently.
So talking out of my perspective, so Hartmann itself is a big group working internationally, and I'm responsible for the whole trauma equipment, for example. So which is a new, let's say, column in the Hartmann portfolio to build up a new portfolio for trauma injuries, for trauma needs. This is because, for example, I'm working for the Swiss company of Hartmann, and we are the supplier for the Swiss military, and we are always sharing experiences, even with Ukraine, for example, what are the needs for and what are the future needs maybe, and we are trying to build up the new, let's say, responsibility to get sure that all of these kind of needs and all of these kind of products, which are may or not in the perspective for purchase or department, are completely covered and can be delivered out of one, let's say, not of one source, but out of one local partner. Because what we are facing for us, for example, is, as mentioned before, a lot of resources coming out of markets outside of Europe. And for us now, it's now a new, let's say, solution to say, okay, we have a local production plants, we have several local production plants, we want to keep them for sure to be a responsible partner for this, and to offer also like an exchange, an open exchange. Okay, what can be in the future upcoming and the needs for to get sure, okay, everything is covered in a solid way. So this is what we are working currently on, and this is what we are trying to keep the focus on. Also, like tender-wise, for example, the tender management at the moment for us, it's facing always price-wise. So the price needs to be as low as possible. Fully understandable, but honestly speaking, competing with prices from the Asian markets, it's absolutely impossible with local production plants. And so we want to shift the focus also, like, okay, the price is one point, definitely, but please keep in mind, if something happens and you don't get the goods, the price is, well, it's nice to have, but you don't have the goods for it, you know. So it's like what we are seeing now, the attention is shifting in this way a little bit, but not everywhere. So maybe we see is also like from the US market with the tariffs thing. Maybe we should get more and more paying attention to the focus. Okay, where we are getting goods from, and if it's worth it to have the lowest price, even by quality level maybe as well. But also keeping an eye on, okay, have a solid level of quality, have a solid level of pricing, and also by logistics, by supply chain. So this is the solution we want to offer. So have a solid level, quality, price, and for sure availability.
I see. Thank you so much. Oh, okay, go ahead.
We focus because it's the main problem on the war trauma. And of course, if they don't die due to poor hemorrhage control, they die of septic complications. But we must also think that we must take care of other aspects, and we don't have enough trained and experienced personnel on PTSD, for example, on chronic pain management. So I think that we should take care also of these aspects. There still are colleagues coming from war zones that experience PTSD, and it's not evaluated and diagnosed, unfortunately, and it's very difficult to take care of. And I think that not only the defense system has this problem, but also Ministry of Internal Affairs. They see a lot of victims with severe lesions during their intervention on, yes. And these aspects, I think, must be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to have like a tour de table. I have a tactical question and a strategic question, if you're up to the challenge. So the tactical question is to all, how a satisfactory medical kit, portable or mounted, should look like. What makes someone happy? Okay, I have this minimal or minimum stuff inside. What would you like to see on an ambulance, on the individual? Sure, go ahead. We don't have necessarily to go like 1, 2, 3. So it's just.
Of course, when we are facing many casualties, nothing is enough. But we have to deal with what we have. So for that, we have a standard in NATO that says what are the minimum requirements for ambulances, and it's a very good reference. We use that. We also have our national regulations regarding our individual first aid kit and our medic first aid bag, and also for the physicians. So I think it's a very good setup for now, but fortunately we didn't get to test it. So of course it should be very dynamic. and it should always be harmonized with what happens in the field. So it's very important to have lessons identified and have a quite flexible set of regulations in order to be able to adapt quickly.
Don't forget, we need to let everybody there
Thank you.
to say something. So
Thank you for that.
please don't.
So for what we have now, I think it's a very good setup. But we are open to see all sorts of other innovations.
So you want to
Thank
do jumping? So we go that end, we come back, we go to that end.
What I realize, to be honest, is it's a question of philosophy of each military individually. So, for example, my experience from the Swiss army, for example, every soldier is equipped with stuff to stop the bleeding at first. So, because you want to get sure this person will not die because of blood loss, and you cannot cover everything, as you mentioned before. It's a dynamic situation. So, but in general, at the first step, always stop the bleeding, and that's it, right? So this is so be as compact as possible, but with the most available options as possible, right? So this is what, and it's a training philosophy as well. So how well are the people are trained to different kind of applications, and so for, let's say, for the industry perspective, I would say always like, okay, be as compact as possible, just stop the bleeding, get sure this person will be staying alive until it can be evacuated, right? So and this is, let's say, in the principle how it should look like and it should working in that way. But it's what we realize, really, it's a question of philosophy, because different militaries train in a different way and equip their soldiers with different kind of equipment, even like law enforcement and even like Red Cross or whatever. So this is, there's not the same structure or like the same system following with the same amount of equipment everyone is equipped with. So maybe this is like another communication part, but this is like what we realize. So the needs are totally different because everyone is having the, let's say, the same way, but not exactly in the same step by step, you know.
Okay. You want to go? Okay, go ahead. Colonel, you want to? Okay.
Research is
And
very
then
important,
you go.
and we've already seen the kits that our colleagues from Special Operational Forces have. Sorry for the commercial, using Chelox, gauze, and other devices, tourniquets, special devices to control bleeding. And it's important to have, I have an obsession, I think, dried plasma, 2 units in each kit, because beside tranexamic acid, this is essential for saving lives and also to use when you have time, the walking blood bank system. This saves lives together with the...
Okay, thank you.
But it's very important to have trained personnel. And physicians are very valuable. They can be victims of the war. So this training system to have competencies in wartime, TC3 course. They are not physicians, they are medics, nurses with special skills. They can ventilate, they decide when they need to give antibiotics, they take care of the pneumothorax. So it's what we lack, not just the kit and the money for a big number of kits.
Yeah. Thank you. Sean, you wanted to contribute?
Super quick. So requirements drive function, and function drives form. And unfortunately, we tend to look at kits and stuff that you carry, and we throw a bunch of stuff in a bag, and we call that an aid bag. And sometimes companies do that. And that doesn't work actually super well. Now, me personally, for the tactical side of it, you want to put stuff that you need first in that, that X, then the A, B, C, D, E, or the march on the outside, so that you're basically the easiest stuff to get to is there, and as you start getting deeper into your bag, it's more and more of a bad day. But I'll close and say that make sure that you understand, or who is carrying stuff understands their place in the resuscitation chain. There was a unit that I went to support that there's a catheter called a Reboa. And that Reboa is putting basically a really large balloon up through your groin into your aorta in the middle of your body, blowing it up and basically not letting any more blood get to the bottom half of your body. That's great for about the first 30 to 45 minutes. Now what? And so I had guys that were on the front line that were, medics that didn't have any hope of a surgeon getting to them and being able to do the next step on that, carrying many of them, including this team had 13 Reboas. That's 13 surgeries. So were you carrying the right stuff appropriate for where you were in the resuscitation chain? So if I'm forward and I know that I can't get surgery and I'm an emergency medicine doc and I can't get surgery for 6 hours, I should not be carrying that. Even though I can, even though I know how to use it, just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sir, please.
Just 30 seconds, just to summarize
That's
everything
wonderful.
that was said here. I think that this kind of kit should be adapted, tailored to the needs, first of all, the type of mission, the risks that are, there. And again, you can have an individual first aid kit, which is very simple. Then you may have a medic or a squad type kit, which is a bit more complex. And then if you're looking at a possible big number of casualties, we can talk about fixed first aid kit that are attached to different kind of vehicles or so on, which are even more complex and can be used by doctors and so on. So that's just as an idea. Thank you.
Super. Anything else you would like to add? Fine. The strategic question. Okay. We talk a lot about the specific medical training. How about training for public, medical training of the population? How would you see that? Essentially, it's for everybody as a question. So, Dr. Berry? Oh.
Again, there are several...
30 seconds.
Very, very short.
30-second answer.
So, different levels of training, yeah? So we have the layperson's training, simple training, CPR, basic life support type of training, which is present in Romania also for everybody who is interested, so on. Then, we may have like a little bit superior training, for those who are involved in civil protection, especially the ones who are coordinating these things. They need to coordinate also the laypersons in a case. And I'm not talking only about the conflict, but I also talk about, a disaster or so, because the principles are basically the same. Yeah? And then it's the high-level training, which goes up to doctors, specialized doctors in different types of pathologies that are linked to this kind of events. Let's call them events.
Perfect. 30 seconds off. Colonel Drena, you wanted to contribute? Again, this is your 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'd like to emphasize that we have a very good program for bringing this basic life support training to the population in institutions and out of them for non-medical providers. And also, I think, that I will be more into some general versus very specific, because the fate of the casualty lies on the one who places the first bandage. So it's very important to bring very simple things to as many people as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sean? Dominic?
It's a really interesting question, because several years ago the German Trauma Foundation reached out to us and they were like, hey, there's no real first aid kit available for public circumstances. if it comes to a really big accident, right? So after facing like bomb attacks and stuff like this, and even mass casualties, it depends on the region how good the people are trained. I'm facing like, or I'm in touch with customers from Scandinavian countries. They are really, really well trained in first aid, for example. So looking downwards south to Europe, it's getting more or less attention, let's say it like this, right? So for example, I have my first aid training, my first aid training was during my driving license, for example. So, and that was the first and only part I have to. Now I'm working on a free basis and on a free volunteer basis on the fire department, so I have my training every year. But in general, there is no need in the civilian sector to have a first aid training. So if it comes to an accident by car, for example, or you're driving with your car, so you have to use the equipment from the first aid kit from your car. So look into this kind of equipment, which was updated with a corona mask, which is quite nice, but will not cover me or will not cover the person, the injuries I'm facing usually by car accidents. It's quite challenging. So the awareness in the public sector must be way, way, way higher. So in my personal perspective, to put the attention on, because, for example, this kind of kit we are creating together with the German Trauma Foundation is perfectly for public circumstances. You can place it everywhere in malls, train stations, bus stations, everywhere where accidents happen. But the usage of these kind of products is another challenge. So for sure you can have a bandage and a tourniquet, but for me personally speaking, I was the first time get in touch with a tourniquet in 2020, which was my start at my career at this company. So was absolutely not familiar with how to use this. And this is like where you look into a lot of people speaking, for example, for people from the US, they are paying way more attention to this topic. Way more than the people in Europe, for example. So everyone is more or less good trained with a tourniquet use, or even with a bandage use, which is not the case in Europe in general with the civilian market.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? 30 seconds.
When we look at, the joint response or international response, but when you look at a whole of society response, this question is super important. And I think that, or I'll make a generalized statement that is my opinion. Here in Europe, and especially in Eastern Europe and the Scandinavian countries, it is much more real for them every day. And the entire approach of whole of society for being able to mobilize relies on little fundamentals like this. And unfortunately, where I live in the United States, we don't share quite that sense of urgency, even though we should. But it does rely on this. So does training the civilian population in medical aspects, is that an important military imperative? I think absolutely yes, for exactly that reason. But if you look at it purely military, nah, not my problem. That's the local hospital, let them figure it out.
Well, thank you very much. Sadly, it's the end of the panel 3. How about joining me in a round of applause for this wonderful panel? Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. Session, it's done. Let distinguished colleague here to offer his closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Really very interesting. What I understood, that I don't have a minimum medical kit in my house. I don't know if it is because I don't have any doctor or nurse in my house, or because I didn't have enough pills or devices, but I will try to find out. So, looks like you are the tough nucleus for today, because you are here at the end of the panels. So what we have here today, we had 3 panels, different subjects, and during these panels we touched a lot of subjects and aspects also. From the first one, we realized that the environment in terms of security is very complex, characterized by different words: unpredictable, complex, unconventional, fragile, at the limit, and so on. As a consequence, the challenges are very diverse. Also, the way to face them should be very complex. We also hear that the coordination it's a very important word also a way to act in terms to face any kind of challenges that we have in terms of security for a successful operation, of course. We also heard that the communication, it's something very important that we should take care of it for any kind of operation that we want to conduct in the field. Also, we understood that SOF, Special Operations Force, are very important for all of us. They are in a very big interest for everybody. Not only in for the defense industry partners, but also for any other partners, institutional one. And what I realized today is that, surprisingly or not, the Special Operations Forces have an academia component on. I didn't know about this one, but something very interesting. From the first and second panels also, we understood that technologies, it's very important for any kind of operation. It is in a continuous modernization and change and adaptation in order to answer to our needs. Also, we understood that the new technologies are all the time influencing the TTPs, yeah, the human resources quality also, design of the field of operation, and of course, way of thinking for our warriors. And we understood that it is a big challenge in front of us to make a kind of balance between the human resources and the new technologies, between human resources and new TTPs, or between new TTPs and new design of operational fields. What we realized also that the industry cares about us, cares about our needs, and they are investing in products or capabilities to answer to our needs. What else? We realized that operational medicine, it's not only business for the military, it's a kind of combination. It addressed to military, in the same time to the civilians, and everything it's related to the communication and cooperation. What I understood here is that we should have a common language, we should have common procedures, we should have common protocols. What I noted here means, for me, education. That's the most important from my view. What else we understood from the last panel? We need capabilities with different specialties in terms of taking care of our wounded soldiers. We need capabilities very mobile. Mobility in the field is very important, as I understood from your part. And we need a robust evacuation system. We also understood that the supply chain, it's a very much importance, and logistic system, it's a must. And I am very glad that our Deputy Chief of Defense for Resources is here, yeah, for this reason. I understood also that the situation awareness, it's a very important thing if you want to have, to tailor an appropriate system for the medical care. And also, we find that the simulation is very important for our training. It means less costly than lose lives. And the healthcare, it is a costly system, but save lives. That's the most important. Thank you very much. We are waiting tomorrow morning, 9:30, and I am pretty sure the panel tomorrow, Women in Combat, Women in Command, it will be very much interesting to all of us. Thank you very much.